flipped out. I thought I was alone in space, and I came back down. I'll tell you what, though, it was the most enjoyable. Welcome back to Jay Smokehouse and our new interview process. I'm joined by the Trusted Canna Nurse, Megan Bang, and also her colleague, the Trusted, I would say, Trusted Psychedelic Nurse. And this is Ariane Williams, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And they are joining me to talk about their new business, Trusted Canna Nurse, and their excellent and wonderful products and why they got into cannabis and psychedelics. So I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Sure. I'll jump in. Okay. My name is Megan Bang. I am the founder of Trusted Canna Nurse. And basically we teach people how to use cannabis and supplements and plant medicine and psychedelics as medicine. So we help everybody from pediatrics to end of life and everything in between. We help them kind of navigate plant medicine from a medical perspective.
I was just going to say, my name is Ariane Williams. Started with working with Megan a couple of months ago. She invited me in to kind of round out things and bring the psychedelics in. I've been involved in working with cannabis and psychedelics for a few years now. It's been an interesting process, and I've just learned a lot. So it's really beautiful to be able to be in a space that we can share.
I agree, and I am really enjoying what you guys have been doing, and I'm actually getting into the psychedelics myself, or at least wanting to get into them more, and so this is really exciting for me. And also, of course, Megan, her products, I've been using them actually today, and it's amazing how much it's working for me, and specifically the Tranquil that you have.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good one. The Tranquil is our anxiety targeted formulation. It has CBD plus a little bit of CBN, and then targeted terpenes, linalool, and myrcene to help people with their stress and their anxiety.
And it's definitely helping with mine. As a combat veteran with hyperanxiety, it really did help with me today. All right. Now, first question, and this is for both you and Ariane, and that is, it isn't every day that you hear of medical professionals getting into or moving away to cannabis or psychedelics. And so I just wanted to know, did you see any pushback? How has it been transitioning into the more holistic medicines?
You can answer that first.
I don't think that I've really received any pushback. I've received some curiosity of like, what are you doing? Are you going rogue and stuff like that? I've had other nurses reach out to me with a lot of curiosity, but I haven't really received any pushback. And for that, I'm really grateful. I always first come from a stance of evidence-based and sharing education so that people can really understand, and really dispelling a lot of the stigma and, the stories that have been created with prohibition that just really aren't true. I don't think I've personally necessarily seen any pushback as much as just curiosity.
Okay, well, that's a good thing.
Pushback for me, and I think it's important to note that we have stepped away from mainstream Western medicine. Mm-hmm. We are trying to enter that space to teach nurses, because federal legalization is coming. We can offer continuing education credits, so we are trying to tap into being able to teach nurses, and it so far that part has not gone well. There has been pushback, but we have just gotten we've just gotten ignored, basically, and reaching out to hospital administrators, nurse managers, saying we can come teach you evidence-based medical cannabis information. And they're just not interested, or they don't think that they can teach this information because it's still Schedule 1. But then what happens when it gets descheduled,
Yeah, I guess if there was any pushback at all, it's more so like the patients and because I haven't tried talking to any schools personally or doing any in-hospital education, but like for my patients and for the clients, it's definitely, there's pushback on that side from providers, either denouncing that things really work, or like Megan said, saying that we can't really talk about this. And from facilities, it's been really interesting, like trying to support people who are in hospice or, in assisted living facilities, and the facilities aren't wanting to allow people to even use CBD. And that's really crazy. So I guess when pushback that, for sure, but there's been a lot of more curiosity on my end, but I also haven't been trying to go into the system. I'm just like teaching the community.
And it's so sad when you learn the history of it and how much that we actually knew of it being medicinal before the prohibition on cannabis. It's just, it's so sad learning about it. I mean, just 1815 pharmacopoeia, it listed so many ailments that cannabis could help that we're rediscovering today.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a very sad thing. And just the pushback for me personally, trying to get life insurance, telling anybody that I use cannabis, I'm being shunned by just about every single one of them.
Wow.
And it's just a sad thing. I quit cigarettes, I quit dipping, but apparently that doesn't matter.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there, that's for sure.
It's sad. And the misinformation from the 30s, the 40s, the campaigns that they did really did work. And it's sad how well they actually did work.
Yeah.
Was it difficult moving into the psychedelics and cannabis?
You can answer that first. I mean, again, like for me, it doesn't feel like there's been a whole lot of difficulty. It almost feels like it's just been a natural progression for me. And I'm really grateful because whenever I left bedside nursing completely back in 2020, and I went into doing more hospice. And I asked the company I was working for, like, can I talk about hemp, and do education around that? And they said, sure, if that's what you want to do. And then when I left hospice and I went into alternative and complementary care, really, more so of like alternative, right? Doing infusions. And I was working in a ketamine clinic, and the physician that I worked for there at that time was incredibly supportive about me talking about cannabis and even psychedelics. It was encouraged, right? So the transition for me has just been really natural. It's almost like, you hear the call, and I've just been kind of following the thread, and just like one thing after another has just really opened paths for me. So it's been really beautiful. I'm really grateful that I haven't had a lot of resistance or a lot of difficulties with sharing this knowledge and sharing the things that really, are what I feel important to share, so people understand and have more understanding.
And seriously, I've really noticed that psilocybin has really taken off. I mean, Johns Hopkins, other universities are really doing a lot of studies on it.
Oh, yeah.
And it really interested me that it seemed to not have the barriers that cannabis had, that people are more accepting of it than cannabis. And I'm assuming that the campaign against psychedelics wasn't as hard as the campaign against cannabis.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some like naysayers, right? Like that still don't really understand the full like capabilities of cannabis as a mind, body, and spirit medicine. And psychedelics, it just seems like it's just been natural. Like it's, oh, okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. Psychedelics are very, very different with the way that the acceptances of it for the most part. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the support that the vets are getting, with PTSD. And there's been so much discussion around that, like, which there should be, because thank you for what you've done, and it's important for y'all to be supported and helped, especially after all the things that have been sacrificed. So, yeah, it is interesting. And I trust that this psychedelic renaissance will actually take some tips from what happened with cannabis, right? So that we don't go backwards and we can continue to move forward.
I totally agree. It kills me how much it can help, and the help that it gives and the ignorance that people have to it, especially with cannabis. I still hear people talking about it being a gateway drug, and I'm just sitting there going, I know so many people who have gotten off of drugs with the aid of cannabis.
100%.
Sure, it can be abused and people can go, I my theory is that people with addictive personalities are going to become addicted regardless. I mean, they can become addicted to food. It doesn't matter that it's an addictive substance or not. Some people can be addicted, but you can't put that on everybody else. That's a very small minority of people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Very valid point.
And third question, and this is for you, Megan. Why did you decide to begin making your own products? And why do you not focus on THC as much as you seem to on the other cannabinoids?
Yeah. Great question. Thank you. So when I started as a cannabis nurse, like having a product line wasn't something I initially wanted to do. But then I was like, okay, well, I need to recommend products for people. And then I couldn't find ones that I had easy access to the certificate of analysis. I couldn't find the test results. And then the products were lower quality. So I said, okay, well, this is something I want to be able to offer myself, a line of really high quality hemp products. So we have a few tinctures and topicals and edibles. And yeah, some are a little bit higher THC. Our gummies are higher THC because those are great for sleep. But then our other tinctures are CBD, and CBD has so much therapeutic value. It, binds to dozens of different receptor sites in our bodies. So it has so much effect, but it doesn't work as well unless you have a small amount of THC and you have the supporting terpenes and flavonoids and all of the things that come with the plant. And ours are, unlike a lot of brands out there that extract in a way that strips away all of those beneficial parts of the plant, ours keep it intact. So patients get the benefit of the whole plant, the whole flower, basically.
I completely agree, and especially on the certificates of analysis.
So yeah, the COA was really so important for me, and I used to send it out with every order, but then our orders grew to be too many. So we have it right available on the product website that people can just click the test results and have access right
That's
there
awesome.
to see it.
Also, when it comes to what we were talking about, the entourage effect, where you needing the other cannabinoids to actually have the full effect of the other cannabinoids, that's something I've seen such a pushback on. Even people in the cannabis communities, they focus so much on the THC and refuse to see any other part of the plant, and it makes me so sad.
Yeah, it makes me super sad too. And, it's really refreshing to hear you say this because I talk to people, I talk to patients or clients or whatever, and they want to know this information, right? They want to understand the terpenes. They want to know the other cannabinoids. And I believe that it's just a belief, right? That, it's only one thing. We only care about the THC, and that's just not true. There are so many people out there that want to know about the terpenes. They want to understand the flower more because this is a plant that you can create an experience with, right? It's a polypharmacy in one thing, right? It's got multiple applications. And when we understand the terpenes and we can see that, then we can create different things. If you want to be more elevated, you want to have increased mood or whatever, limonene or pinene for focus or beta caryophyllene for pain. And it's really frustrating when it's indica sativa hybrid. And it's okay, well, that's not that. You're not going to create an experience based on those three categories. But if you can show me what the terpenes are, right, we really can create something here. And people want to know that information. But, similarly, I've talked to growers and they're like, oh, the only thing that they care about is THC. And I'm like, no, they don't. It's because they don't understand it. And when they do start understanding it, they're like, oh, I can do this? Why isn't this information being shared with me? So.
And that's one thing I'm really liking about your products with the cannabis is getting the other cannabinoids. When I get an influx of THC, I can actually get a little bit more anxiety than when I want, and it's not taking it down, it's actually heightening it. And so I've noticed that if I have a lower THC, or even if I just introduce another strain with a more cannabinoid makeup, it really seems to help, especially when I like you said, I'll change up my terpenes, and I'm doing that for my workouts right now as experimenting. But there's so much that that it seems like can really affect and help. And that's what we need, people like you guys in the medical profession to actually explain it to us, because, you know, I can preach about it all day long on here, but nobody's going to listen to me because I'm not a medical professional. And I have to say it, you know, every which way I can, that I'm not a medical professional. But having you guys, that really helps, and it will get that information out.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. It's we're in a tricky spot, I think, in the industry, because as medical professionals who know both the medical side and the cannabis side, we aren't yet valued on either side. Like, healthcare workers don't want us yet to come in and teach them, and then dispensaries are like, we don't want to pay a nurse to come in and you know, we got this. The bud tenders got this. So so thank you for acknowledging that. But there will come a time.
I'd like to do what I can to change that. I really would. I'd love for people to get that. And just if we could just even get clips of this into dispensaries and allow people to see it. But I think that there's a lot of pushback because there's such an industry in the THC. They don't want to move away from it. And it's so sad to me, because what are you sacrificing to create a 40% THC? How much of the plant are you not getting? What's being sacrificed? And that's just, it's so sad to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunate. All right. And this is for both of you. What made you decide to start sharing, documenting your business and personal use of cannabis psychedelics? Because, like, for me, I know it was difficult, and still is difficult for me to put all my stuff out there. Even just working out, I hate doing that. All this stuff is so out of my comfort zone, but I do it to help others, to educate them. Now, why do you guys do it?
Yeah, I guess when it comes to creating content, that's something that, like, I became really passionate about in the beginning. I would learn something that I thought was super fascinating, and I was like, more people need to know this. Let me start creating content. Mm-hmm. So then I created, I started creating content on TikTok and, all of the platforms, and got myself permanently banned from TikTok, and actually recently got back on just yesterday. So we'll see where that goes. But I think just like sharing, at one point I just said, like, fuck it, I'm going to share, I'm just going to share my experience and my journey. And, that we'll see what happens.
Well, that's extremely brave for you guys, especially in the medical profession. I mean, it's had such a stigma around it, especially in the medical profession.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, as far as that goes, like, I've had a relationship with cannabis for 20 years. It served a lot of different purposes for me. And what really pulled me into the cannabis side and sharing about it medically is my dad. He has a history of opioid use disorder and also is a chronic pain patient. And he called me back in 2020 and was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm tired of taking these meds that don't work. And I'm tired of having to figure out how to pass a drug screen every month to get these meds that I don't want, right? And so that's kind of where my story, like, where I started, and I share a lot of that with people that I interact with in person and stuff like that, because it's important, especially with the opioid use disorder or crisis, really, the epidemic that we have going on right now. And in legal states, they're seeing a decrease in the amount of opioid prescriptions written, the amount of overdoses and deaths associated with opioids. And I think that, just for the well-being of our communities, like, it's a message that needs to be shared. And like I said, I've used it for my own personal, lots of different things: recovering from surgery, helping with anxiety, helping with depression, helping me show up to be a better mom. And similarly with psychedelics, they kind of came into my life when I was going through a really hard period of time, and they really helped me change my perspective and heal my major depression and my anxiety so that I can show up better, right? So I can show up for myself, my daughter, my community, and it's been great. So it's kind of hard, like when these things happen, not to share, right? And not to share with other people, especially when you can feel how much pain and distress is out there.
And the ignorance that they have towards it. I mean, I've been ignorant to it so much. I'm still ignorant. I'm learning, but what you do learn, you just want to go to the rooftops and scream it so that as many people can learn about this, especially getting off of my addictions of benzodiazepines, I believe is how you say it. And then the opiates that I would use. It was crazy. And just the fact that cannabis would alleviate all those cravings. It wasn't right away. It wasn't immediate, but what medication is.
Absolutely.
And this question will be for Ariane, and that will be, what, if any, are the proved ailments microdosing and or macrodosing can aid with? And what, in your opinion, are the most promising possibilities with the psychedelics, and which psychedelics specifically?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So there is, not a whole lot of research on microdosing. It's starting to come around. A lot of the research is done with the synthetics and not necessarily the fruiting body. So what they're calling a microdose, I'm not 100% sure, like if it really is a microdose or if it's something a little bit in between that and the macro. But a lot that can be seen, right, or has been seen in research is decreasing anxiety, overall well-being, feeling more grounded, feeling more connected with things, and just improved overall life, like resolution of depression. And that can be seen in the microdosing space with OCD and with ADHD. There's a study with LSD and ADHD, and its ability to help with focus and like rewire the brain so you're not just all over the place, right? You're able to kind of pinpoint things. And when it comes to macrodoses, there's a lot more research around that, and helping people again with OCD, helping people with PTSD, helping people with treatment-resistant depression. Like that was me. I was treatment-resistant depression. I've been on a slew of meds, and I haven't been on any medicines in 3 years. And it's just really, really amazing. And the thing is that these aren't like quick fixes. This isn't a silver bullet. More times than not, you're having to go into these bigger experiences more than once. And then there's the integration that goes along with it, where you're being supported by somebody who can help you really change your life, right? Like Michael Pollan said, how to change your mind. Well, that's what the medicine does. But now on the other side, you have to figure out ways how to actually change your life and integrate this experience so that it's sustainable. And the research is around LSD. It's with psilocybin, 2CB, which is like a synthetic mescaline. And one of the things that I find really interesting, I think it was Ronald Griffin that shared it at the Psychedelic Science Conference in Denver. And he's like the person who started the consciousness and psychedelics program at Johns Hopkins University. And he was talking about how having that mystical experience is one of the markers for having the transformation that occurs. And, we don't understand the mystical experience. There's no science that can share or show or,
I'm going to find it though. I'm going to figure it out.
There's nothing that's actually there. But it's still like, it's really beautiful that you completely threw my thought off with that. But anyways, he was saying that it's a part of it, right? It's having that experience. And like, I think that we should not be so scared to feel good and have these mystical experiences, because they really are transformative. It can make it where end of life, right? People who are scared of death, who have cancer and stuff like that, being able to go into these experiences, feel connected to something that is bigger than themselves, so that they can trust that they are cared for, feeling that just unabound love. Some people have never felt that before, right? And then they go into these experiences and they feel it. And it's like, how can that be? How can that not be transformative? And Ronald Griffin was talking about how some of his colleagues still don't really believe in it and like have a lot of questions around it. And he said himself, well, that's just ignorance, because sometimes you don't have to have explanation. You just have to believe and understand that this is a part of it, and it opens to so much beauty. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what we continue to learn. I think the research is important in showing how many times you need to go into these big experiences, right? These aren't like pharmaceuticals. This isn't something you're going to take every day. This isn't an experience you're going to go into every month for the rest of your life, right? Most of the time it is 6 months to a year. And I can appreciate that that's a bit of a time investment when someone's wanting that silver bullet. But the way that you receive the transformation on the other side and the way that your life changes is profound, right? I hope that answers the question. But yeah, it's been really interesting just to learn the research of it and to see it on different sides. But I do believe that there's benefit to just doing microdosing alone. I've been working with people in the microdosing space for about 1.5 years. I've personally been microdosing for a couple of years. And I think that there's benefit of doing macro doses, doing the bigger doses, and even doing a combination for having more sustained results, getting to know yourself a little bit better. You know, I feel like psychedelics are, in a way, a path of rediscovering yourself, right, and who you are, and letting go of all the stories that have created you, and just allowing those stories to no longer control you. Like, you have a chance to rewrite it and really learn who you are.
Agreed. And it's for those who might not understand or know, can you just really quickly explain the difference between microdosing and macrodosing?
Yeah, totally. So a microdose is about like 10% of what would be considered a larger dose. It is subperceptual. Generally, you don't really feel a whole lot. Like, sometimes you might feel like a little bit happier, or you may feel more calm. You may feel more grounded. For some people, right? Some people say, oh, the colors are a little bit brighter. But generally, you have increased awareness, you have increased presence in your life, where you're not like constantly dissociated from all the things. And that's why I think that people see brighter colors, is because they're actually slowing down enough to see things in a new way, right? So microdosing is very, very subperceptual. It's not this altered state of consciousness. It doesn't create this like hallucination, or where you're just like intoxicated and you can't go about living your life. Most people do this and fully function and go and do work and all the things they need to do, and you would never know they're on a microdose, other than like, wow, you're a little bit happier today, and it's like, yes, I am, thank you for asking, right? You know, but and then the macro doses are where you are having more of a altered perception. You know, you may start seeing things move and wiggle and have a little bit more flow and stuff like that. So great question. There's a difference.
One of the first times I macrodosed, I was in the car during a snow blizzard, and they immediately became stars. I was going light speed, and I was in an X-Wing. And when my wife said, how are you doing? I flipped out. I thought I was alone in space, and I came back down. I'll tell you what, though, it was the most enjoyable night of one of the most enjoyable nights of my life, truly. And I had such wonderful. I don't want to go into anything disgusting, but let's just say my next morning was very, very pleasant.
I see that. Yeah. You know, and I call that the sunshine period, right? Because some people, like the day after even doing a microdose, they're like, wow, I actually feel really great today, right? And you can see that after the bigger experiences too. Is that an absolute? Absolutely not. But usually people feel really great the next day, and it's just like, oh, and I'm not on the medicine anymore, right? But I feel amazing.
I didn't want anything else. I didn't need it. I didn't want it. And that was a great thing. I know some people who use it regularly use it every 6 months to a year. And I found that really interesting, that you're only doing it twice a year at most, and as opposed to the daily pill.
Yeah,
or multiple pills.
I think it's really interesting that, first of all, like psilocybin and LSD have virtually zero risk of lethal overdose or dependence level, so people like can't become dependent on it. But yeah, it's the way that it acts in the body, and it binds to the serotonin receptors. It's just like fascinating that how that's where I geek out. Ariane's like, it just trust the medicine, it works. I'm like, no, I need to understand what's happening at the cellular level. I need to understand that.
I have a quick question, and this, if you guys can answer this, and that is, can you take too much LSD to where it can have a permanent psychoactive change in your mind?
I think that it's possible. And I think that it depends on like your neurochemistry. There's stories from the 60s and 70s where people have taken really large doses and they haven't come back, right? And my curiosity there is, was there underlying psychosis? Was there underlying like some sort of schizophrenia or something like that? And not saying that these medicines should not, like the people who have those types of things, like shouldn't be allowed to, right? I mean, psychedelics aren't for everybody. And I think that if someone has those types of diagnosis or tendencies or whatever, that it's really supportive to have somebody who can understand that and can help them work through it.
And that's why legalization is so important, so that these people can be connected with healthcare professionals who know this information and can help guide them.
Yeah, I think it's maybe possible if you can go too far. But again, like I would be curious what your neurochemistry is, what anything that might be underlying, and it's really important to have the conversations, and kind of see that.
And that goes for cannabis as well. Like people who have underlying psychosis, like schizophrenia, it can really bring it out. And so you really need to be aware if you have been diagnosed with something like bipolar disorder or something like that, just to be aware that you might be more susceptible than others. I've noticed that a lot of people just like to reiterate that cannabis, is completely safe, when it is for the most part. But there are people who can have allergies to it. There are people who get the syndrome where they actually, the THC can really negatively.
Yeah, I think that like cannabis is safe. Yes, and right. And we are altering it so much and getting away from the actual plant itself, that I feel like that's where we're going to start treading in dangerous waters, because of the ego and the curiosity of what can we actually do with this and all the things, that I feel like that's kind of where it can become a problem. Because cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, like what you're talking about with these ciclet vomiting episodes, isn't necessarily something that has always been around. But we have altered the plant. We're changing it so much. We're increasing these THC percentages and all these things. And also, we are changing on an epigenetic level. And I feel like it's conflicting. So yes, it's safe, and right. There's things that have to be taken into consideration, and it's really important for us to be mindful and for us to really honor what these plants are giving us and not let our curiosity kill the cat.
I completely agree, and that's why I really support those who are doing land race strains or trying to bring them back, just to be able to go back to the roots of our land race strains. They found seeds in a Scythian burial from, I think, 500 BC, and they were still viable. And I would love just to see what that looks like when grown, how it would affect you, all of that. And there's another one that a lot of people don't know about or they don't care about, and that's ruderalis. And I would really like to do a lot more experimentation on ruderalis, because you can have such higher levels of the other cannabinoids rather than THC. Yeah,
same. I have a lot of interest in these land races, and for me personally, staying as close to the plant is important, because we know how the plant works, and I feel like there's more safety in that than when we start going too far off from it.
Agreed. All right. Well, finally, and this is a question I ask all of my interviewees, and that is, finally, what is your hope for the cannabis community and the psychedelic community?
My hope is that, things continue to evolve, and that we stay curious and open to learning more. My hope is that people are doing it with integrity and not getting lost in the shiny things. And because I feel like when we get lost in like the money and the profit and shiny this and shiny that's where people can get hurt. So like my hope for both the psychedelic and the cannabis community is to stay in integrity with things. And, safety is important, and sharing both the good and the bad. Like we have to have the conversations around the pros and the cons and not get shut down whenever we start talking about the cons, because it's just as an important conversation as talking about the benefits. So that's my hope, is that we can continue to have this open conversation about all of it and not just one side.
And my hope, just to add to you guys, is for the medical side to really flourish. We're focused so much on the recreational side of cannabis. We have been for the longest time, and there's so much medical benefit. And I truly believe that even when it gets popularized, they're going to try to shift it from the medicinal side because of how much it can truly help, aid, replace. It's not a kind. I mean, that's one reason why it was so demonized, was how many people were against cannabis because it was losing them money.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what, like, when I've talked to politicians and stuff like that, and they're like, where are you? Are you for recreational? Are you just for medical? And, I'm like, I'm here for freeing the plant. As far as I'm concerned, we're all patients. We all have an endocannabinoid system, and we have the right to clean, quality medicine. And even if you're using it for recreational purposes, you're still supplementing your system. You're still working with your endocannabinoid system. And it's, I think, shifting the perspective that of it being just rec, right? And it's the understanding that we have this system inside of us, and whether you're using it for hanging out with your friends, like, that's cool too. You're still using a medicine that's affecting your system, and you have a right to know how to use it efficiently.
Yeah. I think my hope with, with the industry is that cannabis and psychedelics become an equal yet separate mode of therapy from Western medicine. Because right now, like, of course, Big Pharma is going to come in and try to isolate and, patent the plant. But I think it would be amazing to see people using plant medicine, and it has lost its stigma, and it's just as effective. Like lavender, inhaling lavender can be just as effective as something else for anxiety, as a pharmaceutical. So people can kind of choose, like, both paths are equal. I think that's a very lofty hope, but I'm hoping that we'll kind of go back, we'll go back to nature's medicine,
Yeah.
That would be.
And I don't even want to get rid of all the other medications, let them stay, but let people realize that there's a much better option, and then people are going to choose the better option. And it's my belief that if they have it and they believe that it's a safe option, they're going to opt for it. And that's why I believe it's been demonized for so long, and why they still will not federally legalize it. I think it is coming. They're going to realize the money that they're missing out on. But until then, how many people are still becoming addicted to opiates, becoming addicted to so many other drugs, when it could be a simple fix?
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. You can't make money off of people who are healing. They stay sick.
Exactly. And that's why synthetic cannabinoids are legal, and the plant is not. But anyway, I digress. Thank you very much for joining me on this podcast. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I believe it was informative, and I hope that so many people will come away with a lot better understanding and knowledge of you guys, your products, and cannabis and psychedelics.
Right. Thank you for having us, Jay.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good evening. And now, as always, Jay is going to go smoke a J.